Variations and evolution. Individuals belonging to the same species differ greatly from one another. For example, all human beings are similar to each other and belong to the same species. However, no two people are alike, even identical twins. People may differ from each other in height, weight, eye color, hair color, intelligence, and many other characteristics. Thus, the different expressions of the same body characteristics in different individuals of the same species are known as variations. Genetic recombination occurs when genetic material is exchanged between two different chromosomes. It involves crossing over. During crossing over, two chromosomes, one from each parent, pair up with each other. Next, a segment from one crosses over, or overlaps, a segment of the other chromosome. Thus, a new combination of genes that did not exist before arises, which is not identical to either parent's genetic information. This is called genetic recombination. Genetic recombination increases genetic diversity in sexually reproducing organisms. Mutations are another important source of variations. Mutations are defined as the sudden change in nucleotide sequence of DNA. Alleles arise by mutations. The original allele is called the wild type and the new allele as the mutant allele. Mutations also happen during gamete formation through meiosis. Mutations also contribute towards biological evolution. Random fertilization. Higher organisms produce millions of gametes. Each gamete has a unique genetic composition because of the shuffling of genes and chromosomes in meiosis. When gametes combine at random during fertilization, the organisms produced are different from all others of the species. Thus, random fertilization also acts as a source of variations. Gene flow. The movement of genes from one population to another is called gene flow. Gene flow is also an important source of variations. Continuous and discontinuous variations. The inheritable variations are generally divided into two types: continuous variations and discontinuous variations. Continuous variations. The variations which are not clear. Instead, the phenotypes show a complete range of measurements from one extreme to the other. It means a lot of intermediate characters can be observed between the two extremes of a character. Examples of continuous variations include height, weight, feet size, and skin color. For instance, there are many intermediates from the very dark to the very fair. Variations of these types are called continuous variations. The genetic reason behind this is the presence of many genes together controlling a single character. It is also called polygenic, or many-gene, inheritance. Continuous variations are affected by environmental factors. Discontinuous variations. Some variations are clear and show distinct phenotypes. They include the ABO blood groups, the ability to roll the tongue, etc. There are only 4 types of human blood groups, which are A, B, AB, and O. There is no other possibility, and there are no values in between. Therefore, this is called discontinuous variation. Discontinuous variations are controlled by the alleles of a single gene pair. These variations are not modified by environmental changes. Organic evolution. Organic evolution, also known as biological evolution or organic evolution, is the gradual change in the characteristics of a population or species of organisms over successive generations. The evolutionary changes are always inheritable. The process of evolution is gradual and too slow to be observed. There are some remarkable examples of evolutionary changes which have taken place. For example, some rabbits were released early in the 15th century on a small island called Porto Santo in Portugal. Since there were no other rabbits and no predators on the island, the rabbits multiplied at an amazing rate. After 400 years, they became quite different from the ancestral European stock, not only in size and color, but also in habit, becoming nocturnal. Most importantly, they could not produce offspring when bred with members of the European species. They had, in fact, become a new species of rabbit. Organic evolution includes 2 major processes: alteration in genetic traits of organisms over time, and creation of new types of organisms from a single type. The study of evolution determines the ancestry and relationships among different kinds of organisms. The anti-evolution ideas support that all living things had been created in their current form only a few thousand years ago. This is known as the theory of special creation. However, scientific work in the 18th century led to the idea that living things might change as well. Charles Darwin, who lived from 1809 to 1882, proposed the mechanism of organic evolution in 1838. It was called the theory of natural selection. Darwin proposed this theory after his 5-year voyage on the HMS, or His Majesty's ship, Beagle. He also published a book titled On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection in 1859. Mechanism of evolution, natural selection. Variations among the individuals of the same species may lead to competition for space, reproduction, or any other resources needed for life. The process of evolution by means of natural selection was best explained by Darwin, a leading scientist who made valuable contributions to the science of evolution. According to Darwin's theory of natural selection, evolution may occur in the following ways. Overproduction. It is a general trend in living organisms that they tend to reproduce indefinitely, but resources in the environment are not sufficient for such a large population. Among individuals of a population, there are genetic variations. Competition. As resources in an environment are limited, organisms compete with one another to get sufficient resources to live. The individuals who survive are the ones best adapted to exist in their environment due to the possession of variations that best suit them to their environment. The variation of organisms within a species increases the likelihood that at least some members of the species will survive under changed environmental conditions. Since only those organisms of a population live and survive which are well adapted to their environment, it is known as survival of the fittest. Those organisms with poor adaptability will be excluded from the environment. Therefore, nature selects those organisms who have best adapted to the changing environment. This is called natural selection. Reproduction. Variations assist or hinder individuals in their struggle for survival. The best adapted individuals survive and reproduce, passing on the favorable variations to their offspring. Speciation. As time and generations continue, adaptations are passed on generation after generation, and after many generations through continuous selection, new species may evolve from a common ancestor. Small differences between parents and offspring can accumulate in successive generations so that descendants become very different from their ancestors. An adaptation is a variation which assists an organism or species in its survival. Biological adaptations include changes in structures, behaviors, or physiology that enhance survival and reproductive success in a particular environment. Artificial selection. The term artificial selection was expressed by the Persian scientist Abu Rayhan Biruni in the 11th century. Charles Darwin also used this term in his work on natural selection. He noted that many domesticated animals and plants had special properties that were developed by intentional breeding among individuals with desirable characteristics and discouraging the breeding of individuals with less desirable characteristics. Artificial selection or selective breeding means intentional breeding between individuals for certain traits, or combinations of traits. Selective breeding has revolutionized agricultural and livestock production throughout the world. Animals or plants having desirable characteristics are selected for breeding. In this way, many new generations with desirable characteristics are produced. In artificial selection, the bred animals are known as breeds, while bred plants are known as varieties or cultivars. Numerous breeds of sheep, goats, cows, hens, and others have been produced by artificial selection to increase the production of wool, meat, milk, eggs, and more. Similarly, many plant varieties or cultivars have been produced for better quantity and quality of cereals, fruits, wheat, and rice.